it lands on his nose. He said it was the most horrifying pain. He lost his vision. It all came back later, but he went black in the nose. That's why you may not want to go to the Amazon jungle. Hey GQ, I'm Les Stroud, also known as Survivorman, and this is The Breakdown. First up, the movie Jungle. Gotta say, if you knew the whole story of Yossi Ginsberg and his time in the jungle, it just seemed like everything went wrong for him.
Get your paddle! Get your paddle!
Let's just stop it right there. First of all, the concept of somebody sleeping on a raft like that, when you're in the jungle, when you're traveling like that, you're kind of ready for a nap at any moment of the day. So him being out of it, on his back, on the raft, totally realistic.
Your paddle! This is too hot! Kevin, what do we do? There's the beach!
I'm a whitewater instructor, so I've been down many rivers that look just like that. You come to a lot of bends, and if you have no experience to see the signs on the river, you have no idea what's coming right around that bend. It could be a calm, serene pool where you can pull out and sit on a sand beach, or it could be a 150-foot waterfall. I know what you're thinking. No, you'd hear the waterfall. Not true when you're coming from the top. Waterfalls are not audible when you're coming to the top of them. At the bottom, sure, they're deafening, but at the top, you don't even see them. The trained eye will see this. You'll see a flat line, and if you see little spits jumping up behind that flat line in the water, that's definitely a sheer drop-off. You want to watch for that. So these guys see that little pinch up there, who knows what's next. There's a lot of good realism in this movie, I think. Now, I know Yossi very well. I actually wrote a commentary on his book. So the movie had to deal with something that actually happened in history. They had to get it right, and they had Yossi there as a consultant. And this is why so much about this movie nails it when it comes to what the jungle's really like. So now you're on a raft, you're going down a huge set of rapids, and what you see in terms of escape routes and places that you can get out to go by like this, real fast. So it's not a matter of, oh, look, there's a beach over there, let's just paddle over to it. No, you see it, you're on it, and you're past it all within a split second. It's really, really tough to get out of a set of rapids when you're in the middle, let alone being on a raft, which you can't steer, you can't maneuver very well. You're at the mercy of the river at this point. Okay, so right there, you see Daniel Radcliffe's hand, and the other guy's hand too, on the paddle. I'm happy to see this, actually. They're showing signs of a good paddler. I'll grab my guitar and show you what I mean. Let's pretend that this guitar is actually a paddle. And here's how you'll see people paddling down the river. Their top hand will be like this, and their bottom hand's like that, and they're paddling. Wrong. True way to properly hold a paddle in a whitewater situation is your top hand must always be on the top of the paddle. And then you paddle, and you paddle. Now, if you want to turn the canoe, there's a way to do it called a J-stroke, where you paddle, you bend, and you kind of pivot out. Here's the catch. Here's how you know when someone's getting a paddle stroke right. If they're attempting to do that turn with a J-stroke, their thumb is pointing down and away from them. If they do the stroke and they go like this and then pry, we call that the goon stroke because the thumb is pointing at the goon. All right, suffice it to say, these boys were taught well before shooting this scene because they're getting their paddle strokes right. Wherever they shot that scene, as they come to the opening there and you see the rapids and then it goes out of camera left there, well, I guarantee you that right after camera left was probably just a big flat pool. And then it's like, pull them out and go, okay, cut, next scene. And that's one of the things I wanted to watch out for here was how often you can spot the stunt double, because they're in some real serious water here, and only an experienced river rescue technician, whitewater paddler will know what to do in water like that. There are 150 movies with paddling scenes and they get it all wrong. This is not one of them, so good on them. Oh no! If you notice when he grabs Kevin, I think that's the character's name in it. They go down. They're headed towards a big rock in the middle, like a torpedo. So they throw themselves, so they go headfirst into rock. Completely wrong. In fact, there is a real technique and a real method to being in a set of rapids when you're outside of your canoe, your boat, your raft. And in this situation, I mean, they had to basically prepare themselves for it, and they didn't. They went head first. Stupid. In all whitewater situations, you want to basically think about always feet first, and you do this with your arms. You always do this with your arms. So what are you doing? You're slowing yourself down. That's how you safely go down a set of rapids. Always want to be feet first so that your feet take the shock of the rocks and the branches. The kind of speed you're going to experience it's just on the edge of scary. This is a lot different than say the bottom part of Niagara Falls. That would be just like a rocket. In this situation, every rock, every tree, every bend in the river creates a water blockage, which creates a slower area of water. This is absolutely probably the most terrifying place to be. It's because the water that is coming down on that rock and on their bodies is like the force of somebody in a car with their bumper against your legs and they're pushing on the accelerator. It's an intense amount of pressure and they're trapped on this rock. So why can't they just climb up on it? Because the water is so powerful, it makes it very difficult. If you can't get your footing, there's nothing you can push off against, it's hard just to go up the rock. And seeing that scene, I've been there on a rock in a situation like that, and it's probably one of the most fearful times of my life. So this is a powerful scene, and they've done it well. When you're a whitewater paddler, you hit a rock like that, you're supposed to hit it bow first, that's the front of the canoe, and glance off it, right or left. If you take that rock sideways, it's called breaching on the rock, and a canoe or a kayak will hit that rock sideways and will wrap around it. And once it's there, once it's wrapped around that rock, with all the force of all that water pushing on it, you can't get that canoe off without some very specific skills that you can incorporate. There are ways to do it, but you need a lot of rope and you need a lot of help. The drone comes down, and we see this long shot of the guys stuck on the rock, and then you see what they're looking at, which is that canyon with all the frothy water. And remember, I'm also a film editor. I'm a filmmaker, so I'm noticing a change just in the colorizing. But I'm wondering if they used some kind of CGI or green screen in a situation like that. Raft didn't break apart. They're still hanging on to it. And remember, on that raft and on those two guys is enough power, enough intensity of water that it's like somebody's holding them with a car with their foot on the gas pedal. So Kevin is looking back at the shore on the other side, and he's going, I can make it. This guy was dubious in any event, and you're supposed to know the water and the shoreline if you are someone who travels these rivers. And I would have known, looking at that, there is no way that I can swim across to that. Just looking at the power and the speed of the water, depth of the water, cannot get across there. So this is basically an act of desperation at this point.
It's too dangerous. The only way.
You don't have a lot of options in a situation like that, especially for the second man, for Yossi, who's stuck there. I think the thought that Kevin could take the machete and make a rope and throw it to Yossi, that's about it. It's a last-ditch effort. He should have taken the machete and swam with it, kind of hold it like this and swim with it. Anything but say, throw it to me after I get over there. I love that, just that terrified look of Daniel Radcliffe as Yossi looking ahead, and that's all you see. When you're in a situation like that, you don't see anything pretty. You just see frothing white water, black water, gray water, and it's very scary to see that. You're stuck in the middle of a washing machine, and you're sure you're going to drown. By the way, drowning, one of the most painful ways to die. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do a backwards swimming. You have your feet in front of you. They're there for bouncing off rocks. You paddle backward to slow yourself down. And the way to do that is you can angle yourself like a bird. So you want to go to river left, just drop your right arm down a bit and back paddle this way. And that is how you get yourself out of a set of rapids. Paddling straight forward with the front crawl and the likelihood of you smashing your forehead onto a rock is very high. And very, very dangerous. The whole thing about trying to swim in a set of rapids or get out of a set of rapids if you dunked in them, it's all about entrapment. If you try to stand up in a set of rapids, as you think, okay, I'm good to go, you should never do that unless you can feel the bottom and it feels like you're in maybe 6 inches of water. And here's what happens. Now you're standing up, but you step in between the rocks. The water's coming this way. You get pushed over, you snap your legs right there, and now you're flopping like this with your head under the water. And that's how you see your last day. It can be very scary. I have fallen like that. I have never snapped my legs. I very quickly have to kind of hold on and roll over, and it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I'm glad that when he went under the water, they just did it for effect. They did the whole camera turn, right? But what we call that in whitewater paddling is a washing machine. So when you get dunked and you're under the water and the water's all it's basically eyes in the washing machine. It's very hard to get out of that. The only way to really get out is to dive to the bottom and spit yourself out. But try to have the presence of mind to do something like that. Whew, just even watching this is intense. Next up, Predator. I know Arnie's strong, but this strong, it's kind of stretching it a little bit. Those trees are pretty powerful, so normally you're going to need like a bulldozer to get that tree to bend over like that. But you know, these guys are really strong. Okay, so jungle vines. Yeah, I gotta say it works. I've been blown away at times by how strong and how readily accessible vines are in the jungle and the way you can use them. And you really rarely have to make rope out of something in a jungle. Often the vines are just there and they suffice really well. So this is good. The downside of what those guys are doing right now is that they are stirring up a ton of insects, many of which will be poisonous, from hornets' nests to bullet ant nests. When you start messing with the jungle and gathering all these vines, you're stirring all of that up. And they didn't really play off of that, but that is what's going on.
You really think this Boy Scout bull is gonna work?
It can see our tripwires. Maybe it can't see this. Instead of complaining, maybe you should help.
We got us a group survival situation, and often there is the negative Nancy, the person who is just like going, yeah, come on, this isn't going to work. That's the person you need to give a job to do, and that's kind of what Arnie's character did right here. When I first started in survival, there were a lot of things that they seem a little geeky at first, you know. But once you get into it, you realize that they have their basis in just really great skills. Here he's joking, calling them Boy Scout bullshit, but sometimes it's that Boy Scout bullshit that'll save your life. Wow, that is a messy tie job on that rope. You'd think that guys with these kinds of skills would know how to properly make lashings, and that is not, all I can say is that's not the proper way. When it comes to making tripwires for deadfalls and snares. That's a whole field in itself. You've got to learn your knots and your rope, or you know how to utilize vines. It starts with knife use. So now you know how to carve things and make little things. Then you have to understand the creatures you're going after. There's a lot involved with knowing how to make an animal trap. Deadfall is a way of capturing an animal that you might want to eat. Now you can do that by getting a large object, setting up a triggering mechanism, and when that trigger is tripped by the animal, the rock or the log falls down, kills the animal, you got yourself dinner. A snare is basically taking a rope or a wire, and you need to put it in the area where an animal is traveling through. There's a lot involved in trapping. The thing about building anything in any survival situation is it's made better with gear. If you don't have even a knife to work with trees and wood and just about any material with just your hands, it can be done, but it takes forever, and it kind of takes a village. I think what I loved about the Predator films were that in the end, you realized it was a highly intelligent being, and that, you know, that reason was going to be the thing that enabled you to capture it. So in the real world, we go after animals based on instinct, almost entirely on instinct, but sometimes they think. My guess is that this was not actually shot on a Hollywood lot, but that it was shot somewhere they could get to. There's definitely realism in where they are. These trees are real, but then they're adding in atmosphere with all of the fog. That's the thing that always got to me, is watching a jungle scene and then seeing that the filmmaker decided he needed to add in atmosphere. Sometimes it's just always overdone. It's like, you know what? The area is already dramatic enough. It's powerful. I always thought that was Survivorman. I never tried to make something look more dramatic than it was, because it already was inherently dramatic. The network one time wanting me to start to fake Survivorman by writing in some more dangerous scenes. And I remember saying, so let me get this straight. You're telling me that a guy, me, alone in the Amazon jungle for 7 days without food, without water, no survival gear, filming myself, is not dramatic enough for you? Yeah, no. And so I never did. Never wrote in drama, because the jungle's already dramatic. Okay, next up, King of the Lost World. Basically, that's a fogger machine that they've got down on the ground there somewhere for that mist blowing by. I've been in the jungle a lot of times. I can't say I've seen mist that thick blowing past my feet in the middle of the trees. Maybe out by the river, but not in the middle of the trees. So we're getting into some... This is going to be cheesy, let's just face it.
What is this, moss?
Okay, so I'd really like to know how many people would see a spider web and ask, what is this moss, with a question mark? Oh, I don't know where to begin with this. There's so much that's off here. The largest insects that you'll find in any jungle, get to be, about like this. Still big and scary when some of them are benign and not dangerous at all, but they're, like cockroaches, for example. So there are some pretty massive insects out there, just nothing like this spider. This is not a high-budget film.
Get him out of there! Check him, see if he's all right.
So the leaders check him, see if he's all right. He just got thrown out of a tree by a spider the size of a car, and he's already completely wrapped in something, and that's the leader's call. Check him and see if he's all right. Whatever chemicals are in that spider to eat away flesh. Notice how nice and clean the eyeball is, though. You'd think that the chemicals from the spider that completely dissolved the flesh this quickly would have done something to the eyeball as well. But, you had to have that eye. The thing about poisonous creatures, it's a little known fact that the closer you are to the equator, the more intense, let's say the more toxic the poison actually is. Let's make sure we get the terms correct here. Poisonous venomous. A snake is venomous. A spider is venomous. They can inject the venom into you. Poison is something you ingest. So we often just conflate those terms and say, oh, it's a poison of such and such. It's not poisonous. It's venomous. Let's get that right. The problem with being bitten or stung by just about anything is that the likelihood that you will have what you need to take care of that venom that's gone into your system is pretty close to nil. You can carry snake, anti-venom, but then you have to get bitten by that snake that you carry the anti-venom for. You have to administer it perfectly or you can kill the person. And if you're out in the jungle, most of the time you're just going to have to try and hopefully live through it. In some cases, you won't. Here's the thing about my time in close proximity to anything that can attack me, sting me, bite me. Nothing has ever happened to me. But mostly it's because when I'm in those situations, I'm really cautious. For example, there's a difference here in how you step on or over a log. Now in Canada, I might step over a log. Why? Well, if I step up on it and it breaks, I could snap an ankle. However, in the Amazon jungle, I don't do that because if you step over a log, that's where snakes like to lie. You stand on the log and then you sort of jump off of it. And that is a safer way to make sure you don't get bitten by a venomous snake in the Amazon jungle. Yeah, because spiders hiss. Okay, that's not completely untrue. Actually, there are creatures, little creepy crawlies, that make hissing sounds, and worse, and can be very scary, especially at night. Here's a spider story for you. I was in the Amazon jungle, and an indigenous Guarani native man named Tomo, and he's sitting by his fire, and he's got a 6-foot-long poker stick, and there's a spider size of my hand over there, and he's poking this spider. And the spider jumps up and lands right on his nose and bites the second it lands on his nose. He said it was the most horrifying pain. He lost his vision. It all came back later, but he went black in the nose. That's why you may not want to go to the Amazon jungle.
Hello, behind you!
Oh yeah, that's just so great. That is a big spider. I will say there are more species of poisonous creatures in Australia, but the intensity of them in the Amazon jungle is stronger. It's palpable.
Oh, behind you!
Okay, she's not actually screaming. Boy, this is some bad editing. Why is it always the girl that has to fall and scream? Why don't they have like a guy fall? And I'm not talking about like the ditzy guy. Like, why don't they have like the hero fall and scream just once? So once again, I will say that there are better movies if you want to see some realism in the jungle. Thanks everybody for watching these clips with me. Now stay tuned for part 2 of Jungle Survival Scenes.